Good evening, everyone. We'll begin our May 26th work session. At this time, I'm going to turn it over first to our interim town manager, Russ Overton.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. For the agenda tonight, we are going to continue our budget discussion in presentation that we started at the quarterly meeting. And from that meeting, thanks again to the chiefs who used a portion of that time to talk about the heavily focused public safety budget that's been recommended to you. Tonight's focus is going to be on cuts in revenues specifically. Hopefully we'll get through that, but if we do not, we're prepared to continue it on Thursday as well. And if we do happen to get through it, then on Thursday we will also use our time to focus on high-performing staff as well as a living wage presentation for you as we just continue the discussion of the budget. So with that, and to get started, I'm going to skip over, as Jenny and I talked, we'll bring a calendar back to you on Thursday so that we can get to our budget discussion tonight and then get to I believe we have closed session afterwards. So we're going to try to also just maintain this to an hour, if that's possible, so that we have plenty of time for the closed session.
Okay.
So with that, I'll turn it over to Stacy.
All right, thank you very much, Russ. Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here to pick up where we left off on May the 14th, right? All right, so quick look at the calendar. Lots of checks. We've accomplished a lot of things together since January, and we finally made it to the second slide of dots. We're here tonight, May 28th, for the work session. We have another work session on Thursday, and our first budget public hearing is also on Thursday. So Russ teed this up nicely. We're here to talk this evening about cuts that have been made to this 2027 recommended budget and additional ones that you all could consider. We're also going to talk a little bit about potential additional revenue sources and or cost recovery options. So you are not seeing things, This really does say budget cuts considerations FY 2026. That is the current year that we are in. But we wanted to walk you through and remind everyone of some of the steps that went into making this current year budget, because that actually really plays an integral role in how we got to the FY 2027 recommendation. So going back a year and a half, the 2026 budget instructions provided to staff were minimal to no increases. When you submit your requests, minimal to no increases. Those requests came in, staff worked together, determined that another $27.8 million needed to be reduced from those requests. And that was a combination of things. It was voluntary cuts, mandatory cuts, decisions like not replacing vehicles for the second year in a row. All of that combined together reduced the 26 requested budget by $27.8 million to form the recommendation. So let's talk about what the current year budget has accomplished. You know, that direction that was given to staff, the cuts that were made, there were reasons for that. The first was that work helped us address our fund balance challenges that we've talked about. That work temporarily for 1 year eliminated 29 positions. We've talked about those. I think I stole my own thunder there on the vehicle replacements. It meant we didn't do them for 2 years in a row. We did look at some departments and divisions, and in that work eliminated the R&D, research and development, and community projects groups. And so we've started talking about this work that was done to form the current year as kind of the major cleaning of the closet. We went in and we did a lot of work to bring you the recommendation for the budget we're in now. So that does set the stage for FY 2027. So the direction that was given to staff when they were submitting the request for the budget that you all are considering now was request what is needed. Meaning, last year was the major closet cleaning. You may need more resources, whether those are personnel or those are supplies, whatever the case may be, equipment. Ask for what you need. Get us to a point where you are providing service at a right and appropriate level with what you need. And so those requests came in, and again, directors looked at the number associated with that and we're like, all right, we're gonna have to cut something, right? It's more than what we think we can move forward with. What do we reduce? So through that work, directors and the interim town manager worked together to permanently eliminate 32 positions. That's all 29 of the ones that were unfunded the prior year, plus an additional 3. That group identified another $8 million in operating cuts, and then identified $53.3 million in capital cuts, which we talked a lot about during the quarterly meeting earlier in May. And so internally, we've kind of dubbed this second review the second cleaning of the closet, right? And when you do one major cleaning, there's often a little less to clean when you come back the next year to do it again. Another complicating factor, we've talked about this when we've talked about property tax revenue, and I don't want us to lose sight of this, is that Cary's Wake County assessed valuation, the portion of Cary and Wake County, that valuation decreased for the first time in recent years. So it decreased, that value decreased by about $200 million. So that's not an insignificant amount, right? Now, overall assessed value is up over actual 2025, but the Wake County piece, the biggest piece of Cary, decreased.
Could you explain that a little bit, sorry? Like,
Yes.
the individual home value went up, but the Wake County, so in Cary, the value went up, the assessed value of a home, but for the entire Wake County, it went down.
Yes, because we've talked a lot recently about the charitable housing exemptions and the impacts that those are having on the tax base in all counties locally, but particularly heavy in Wake County. That is a significant piece of that decrease. The reason the overall assessed value has not decreased when comparing it to our last actual year, which is 2025, is because Chatham County is up. So that has kind of helped offset that a little bit.
Stacy, I think it's important also to remind that not everybody's values has continued to go up. Tell your story.
Yeah, I did not. My house did increase in value significantly. We live very close to the downtown Cary Park. I did not file for a property tax relief in any way. I was like, it is what it is. I'll pay my bill. We're moving on. The assessed value is the assessed value. And I personally got a letter 3 months ago in the mail that said, hey, your value has decreased by $1,000. And I was like, I don't understand. I did not submit anything. Why did my value decrease? And so I have not been able to get full resolution yet as to why that decrease happened. But my personal property, my home, the value decreased $1,200.
So the house value, even in Cary,
Yes.
has gone down.
Yes.
For some magic reason, mine did, uninitiated.
Overall, or just in some cases? Or do you have that data?
I don't have that data, and the majority of that $200 million that I'm talking about, it is directly related to that charitable housing legislation that we've talked about and the exemptions that apartment buildings are managing to be awarded in the current environment. That could change based on
Do we
what...
need to explain that for those that are watching what we're talking about?
We
Yeah.
can. I don't have all the ins and outs, but I can give you the very high-level explanation, which is there is legislation currently in place that allows a very minimal amount of an LLC that owns an apartment building to be nonprofit. It could be the tiniest of ownership in a jointly owned investment property. And that tiniest of ownership more than likely qualifies that apartment building, thinking about multifamily right now, for a very significant exemption, as it is then considered a charitable housing, it's part of the charitable housing tax group. So that means that what we could have earned in value at a higher privately held value is now pretty dramatically decreased. And I think I gave you an example a couple work sessions ago, and I just can't recall the number, but it was about a 70% decrease, I think, in value because of that minority ownership, which qualified as charitable.
Was that at the quarterly? as
I
well?
think it was a
When this
work
slide-
session.
Was it the work session before
I think
that?
I was standing here when I did
I
it.
think
so-
probably I think there were probably 2 properties in Cary that fell into that.
I believe there were about 6 the
There's-
last time I
Okay.
checked. It's not like it's 20.
I thought 6 was like an entire Wake, but I could
No,
be wrong.
Wake was more.
Yeah, Wake was more, 6 was Cary.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
And it's important to note, we believe that there's probably multiple factors, and we haven't been able to break it all down, analyze it in detail, to be able to tell you what the factors were.
But that's a
So-
significant piece.
We just know it's really significant for you all to hear. The value overall of Cary property has decreased, which seems very unusual, at least certainly in my history, and I know Russ's as well.
That's unfortunate. You said that, you used multifamily. So it's
Yes.
not on mixed use?
It's multifamily apartments focused.
Only multifamily?
That's my understanding.
Is this just from fiscal year 2025 to 2026?
Can you give me a little more reference so I understand what you're comparing?
When did this legislation occur so that this decrease, that specifically that piece happened?
I've caught her mid-bite, but it's not new legislation.
No, the legislation was enacted years ago. There was a court case more recently, but still maybe like 10-ish years ago,
Oh.
that explained that, yes, this was a legitimate thing for property owners to take advantage of. And folks just seem to be catching on, that this is something they can do. So it's become much more popular just the past few years.
Okay, thank you.
So it's not necessarily that collectively, our home values are going down.
Although mine did,
Perhaps,
and I don't know
yours
why.
may be a unique situation because I haven't heard of anybody else so far. But
I got a
it's-
letter.
But that's a good distinction, that it's not like, hey, your tax bill's probably not going down. It's a part of a bigger thing.
Yes.
But I think like we do revenue neutral, when it goes up, we reduce the tax so that, we are kind of balancing it out. In this case, it will be in the opposite direction, isn't that true?
Could be if your
depends.
scenario were true the whole way and you were never revenue neutral, you still need the same amount of revenue to supply the same amount of services. Therefore, the taxes could go up. if
So in
values went down.
reality, we are saying taxes are going up, but, when the house assessed value goes down, it's kind of, we're balancing that, but we are going probably more than
Well,
going revenue neutral.
This year, we're just highlighting it as as we haven't seen it in a recent time. And it's still affected, you said, the amount. So it's not an insignificant amount. But we're not raising taxes as a result of a reassessment.
I see.
Correct.
But here's the question. So for your $1,000.
My
since you
weird
gave
$1,200?
So your $1,000 is $3 less to carry, $3.40
Right.
Good
less
point.
to carry.
Right.
But do we know how many properties are impacted? Like, is it enough for us to make a change in what our expected and estimated taxes will be?
I don't have all of that information. That's not what we have.
Right.
I do believe that the majority of what is driving this truly is that charitable housing exemption. And that's why I keep coming back to, that's what we're hearing from Marcus Kinraid at the county. That is absolutely the biggest factor that they are seeing and what he is advocating strongly with the board. So I do believe that my situation is a weird one. I mean, whatever. It is the legislation, in my opinion, that is the largest impact, and that's definitely verified by what Marcus is seeing. And Marcus Kinraid, for those who are not familiar, is the tax administrator for Wake County, and he is the person, he and his team provide the assessed value number for all of the municipalities in Wake County. That is not a number that we, as a staff, estimate. That is provided to us.
Thank you.
It's really important for people to understand, though, because if this continues to trend in this way, then it will impact
That's correct.
all
Yeah,
property owners in the future.
yeah. Okay, questions on this slide? Okay. Next up, so we've talked about how this has been building. These cuts have been happening. We cleaned the closet really big to get to 26. We cleaned it again in 27, and you all have very rightfully asked for what else could be cut, right? That's a big question, and so what we are hoping today is for some discussion from you all to help us hone in a little bit on that some more. But what we have brought forward are some cut amounts. This is focusing on the operating budget that could be considered. They do say not recommended under them because they are not included in the recommended budget and is not what was brought forward by the interim manager and staff, but absolutely could be considered. You'll see them here. I won't necessarily read them all. They total about $2.5 million-ish, I believe. We can talk about any of them of interest to you, and there may be others. So if there are any on this list that you would like additional insight into, we can absolutely dig into those, and you are welcome to discuss others as well.
And these are some of which you've brought forward in discussions, but also these amounts are the total amounts. So
And we have an additional slide that's going to come after this that's going to focus on capital. So this is not all the cuts we're bringing forward. This is just kind of the first slide focused solely at operating items that we identified. Then we'll talk a little bit about capital and how that impacts operating.
Why does it say not recommended?
Yeah, say it again. You
It
said
says not recommended because these are choices that could be made. They were not made by staff. Staff recommended funding all of them. So, for example, I'll give you an example. This $375,000 for the Chamber of Commerce contract would mean that is the entire contract with the Chamber of Commerce. So there is a lot more thought that needs to go into that cut. Do we want to pull that funding? And then that changes our entire relationship with that team that provides us some economic development support. So that is why we wanted to designate it clearly to say it's not recommended. We could do it. We could do it. So the available for mid-year funding is.
More like here are some possible things you could cut, but we're not recommending you cut them.
Correct.
that are somewhat larger ticket items in the grand scheme of things.
But you're not recommending that we don't cut them, you're neutral. Is that's what I'm
Correct.
reading?
We
That's a
think
pla-
you should have a discussion.
It's a conversation for you all to have.
I look at it as it's not in the binder.
It's not in the,
It's not,
I mean, I'm sorry. It is in the
It
binder.
is in the binder.
It is in the binder, and we didn't take it out.
Torn that page out.
Yes.
But you could,
But-
if you chose.
So instead of you giving us 3 options, you're presenting options where we can probably think deeper and say, let's remove this or pause this for a couple of years.
Or 1 year.
Or remove it.
Right. It really just 1 year focused for now.
And I have some additional to share in a minute. But
And it
this-
doesn't have to be in the entirety either.
Correct.
just so I understand, because you're teeing all these up, I'm guessing, for
Yeah.
future conversation.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
right?
Or
exactly.
tonight.
So we'll be able to,
Like
or
now.
do you want us to talk about these now, or do you want to get through your presentation and then we?
I will leave that to Russ, but we are very much interested in discussion today.
Yeah, these, like you said, this is operating, so if you want to see the
Capital side.
Can't have a full conversation, feel free. It's however you want to talk about it. We have 40 minutes.
well, I've got all kinds of thoughts.
I have so many thoughts, yeah,
And we have
that was
revenues
the
too.
reason
There's
why
no
I
wrong way to
asked,
go about
is
it.
when do we talk, well, I think many of us have shared or discussed the idea of reducing the contracted videos publicly. I don't know the expenses associated with these and what the pros and cons are about, with regard to them. I don't want to say, kill the whole contracted videos number without understanding that if we were to bring that in-house, there would still be some sort of cost, whether it's capital or operating, associated with it. I would just put out there that I'd like to investigate other opportunities with some of these line items, specifically the contracted videos, obviously the Chamber of Commerce contract and what that statement of work looks like. It's been a long time since we did a website overhaul, and I think we've all complained about the website enough. But those were the two that pop up for me.
Okay, that's great.
I think what I want to also know is that Chamber of Commerce contract, we do a lot of sponsorships with them too, for every event. And how much is the total amount? And, can we talk to them and renegotiate some of those things and
You
stuff
could.
like that?
And these are total amounts, and I think y'all are both spot on. All we need tonight to know is which ones do you may wish to investigate further, and then whether it's Thursday or the following work session, is to bring that back to you over the course of the next
I
couple
also
work
want to
sessions.
know what is contracted festivals?
That's the list of festivals that we pay money.
Stacy can break it down a little bit.
Yeah, there are 4, and I don't have my prompt in front of me, so this one I got to think about what they are. But it's SAS, Taste of China, and
Fest in the West.
Fest in the West, that's
3.
it. Those 3 combined, they are contracted. We have contracts between the town and between that, I'll say festival vendor, that's not the right word, but I'll go with that, festival group. And together, all of those total $185,000.
Just those 3?
Just
Just
those,
those 3 that we give cash to.
Yes.
Could you tell me again, Taste of China?
I may have missed
can't
one, I
be
can
right.
check my notes, but it's
The
SAS.
list is much longer. Does that
We-
mean that they're not cash?
In-kind services versus
Correct.
cash.
Okay.
Are you thinking of this page too, Lori?
Yeah, yes,
Yes.
Oh, yes, that page.
that page.
But so in that 185 on this list is
Yes.
SAS,
Yes.
Fest in the West and Asia Fest?
Yes, I've seen it, Stacy. yes.
Taste of China,
Taste of
yes.
China. And so those receive cash,
Correct.
and the
But
rest are
In kind.
But
Correct.
I thought Hums of Diwali also gets significant $25,000.
I believe they get that through our nonprofit, through our grant process for cultural arts. So that is a separate,
bucket.
Got it.
yes, a separate source of funding for some groups. But these are large events that have a specific contract for a cash payment of support between the town and that festival vendor, for lack of a better word.
So my comments, given a little history, we went to war with the Chamber of Commerce many years ago, and that was devastating for everybody. I'd caution, very seriously caution, do not harm the Chamber of Commerce. They've helped us go international. They've helped bring business to Cary. They are a vital part of our economic success, and if we ruin that relationship with the Chamber, I think we're in trouble. So I would be very, very careful doing that. However, I am interested in and I'm just giving my opinion, so we go. I'm interested in the contracted videos, exactly for the reasons you said. I want to know the pros and cons, because I fear, at one time we did do them in-house, and we actually saved money by contracting them. So I want to make sure we don't hurt that. And then the festivals, we talked about, not only, you're talking about the cash ones, but and this is a later discussion, but there's this huge list that requires police and fire support and EMS that we need to go through and find a way to reduce that list or combined.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's exactly where my thought process was. I spoke to the chief over the weekend, and I did agree, I'm sorry to cut you, but then
No.
I got excited, and I hope it's, like somebody else is also thinking about it.
So we're so fire and police focused in this budget, and we're not addressing some of the things that really harm them, and that is all these festivals we have. And there was what was it, 2 pages?
Yeah.
Yes, multiple pages.
And so we need to figure out a way to combine them. I don't want to cut any group that wants to have.
So I think what Chief also suggested when I spoke to him one-on-one was more about, why don't council decide what is the primary focus and the scope of the services that we want to provide to some festivals, and others can hire the officers as and when they're needed.
Exactly.
So that's you've been saying this story about the revenue generation and whatnot. That's not a revenue generation for us, but that helps our police officers
It's
get
an
paid
economic,
better.
yeah, and it does have an economic impact. I think what I think I'm hearing, and I would love to hear from other folks too, is we'd like to know a little bit more about the pros, the cons, the upsides and down, and what is possible with these numbers. Maybe, we still need to have a certain amount in the contracted festivals, so we can do a couple, or maybe we move to a model that's not cash, right? That's maybe advanced services or providing
100%,
services.
yeah.
So I think it warrants more information so that we
great.
can
Yep, we'll take it.
collectively talk about it. You look like you're going to say something, Chris.
I see the festivals a lot more simplistically. I think we need to apply a uniform lessening of what we're giving in support across the board, including any of the non-cash support like Public Works. Reduce it for everybody pretty uniformly, and also introduce minimum expectations so that if they want to have a festival, here's what we expect you to provide to make sure they're still safe, there's still everything that's necessary, so that the festivals are, the burden is less shouldered by the town, and apply it really uniformly. I just had lunch recently with one of the festival organizers and said, hey, I'm going to introduce this just so you know, what would that do? And he's like, oh, we'll be okay. They understand that it can't be quite so fully funded. The tax dollars, I think, are an important part of the festivals because, let's be honest, everybody has a handful of these events they really like. But if they are viable, they should be able to be viable based on vendor payments and the organizations themselves and such. And if they're not, then perhaps a festival of that magnitude isn't warranted.
I 100% back that, because
Yeah.
that's exactly the direction that we need to be, given the way the town is growing.
Yeah.
And, it's unfair to be taking one person's side versus, we shouldn't be taking sides. Everybody should be able to, and what you said is right, provide guidelines, this much police officers are needed, and you have to pay for this service.
Yeah, and I don't see it as picking sides. There are some events, I think, that we have that are very well-attended and fan favorites. There's others that are very low attendance.
Yeah.
And cutting support entirely for those that are extremely low attendance, I think it's just good money management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see a lot of head
Yeah.
nodding over
I
here.
totally agree. I don't know if my mic here is at the right level.
There you go.
Yeah, I think we just maybe haven't had a lot of strategy that we've been inclusive to a default, that we've said, yes, where there's a will, there's a way, we'll
Yeah.
make your festival happen for you. And that's just not the environment we're in anymore. Because thank you, Stacy, for helping us understand some of this, because I was trying to square this list of recognized events, for those following along, page 62, with our general nonprofit funding, because we know that many of these events have a named sponsor, and that nonprofit didn't appear in the nonprofit list, and so I was trying to reconcile the two. And, the nonprofit funding, we have our little statutory language here that we devote $1 per person of population. And so, that feels like that is really thoughtful. We've said, this is our cap, these are our dollars that we devote to this purpose. And I would be curious to know a little bit more about how these nonprofits are identified, if this is an application process.
application.
It is, yes.
Yes, I assumed so.
And council doesn't weigh in on it.
Right.
They have a rubric. they
Yes,
do
but it doesn't
well.
seem we apply the same logic to festivals, and it seems like that would make a lot of sense to me, that, we might cap it at a dollar amount, we might have an application process, that we can equalize across the calendar, and,
That's a thoughtful approach.
and yeah, just get a little more strategic with how we're funding these events.
That's an excellent point. There's a direct cost and there's an indirect cost, and we have to evaluate both aspects to see, because I feel like indirect cost is so significant that the amount of time our police officers, our firefighters, EMS, they're spending during the festival, that is our in-kind
Yeah.
service that we are providing to these festivals. And if we kind of start managing that through strategy and policy, we might free up some of the officers from being overworked, which is a prime concern right now.
Yeah, and at the quarterly, I'm sorry, Michelle, at the quarterly, we even mentioned starting to charge, essentially, is asking to offset these expenses, to even offset the in-kind expenses.
And there are times where multiple of these festivals that we provide something for happen at the same time. So they're already stretched thin, but, somebody mentioned end calendar also. But, we're funding or providing some kind of in-kind for multiple things that we can't even attend. Because, there was recently where there were 3 things on one day, and it was kind of like, which one are you going to?
Yeah.
Because I can't be in 3 places, but I'd love to.
Yeah.
And if we're funding.
I think we're racing from one to
Yeah.
one. We're
I think all
like
of us,
overlapping.
yes.
Yeah.
Best in the West Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say, I think Councilmember Richards, you said it well. As I've talked to you about festivals a little bit, I don't think you used the word environment. We've not been in a budgetary environment where you've had to think about it in
Yeah.
this way. So the one thing that I'd say, if that's what you're interested in, is that we could probably look at, and Councilmember Johnson had said, see what they cost. I think you'd have to give us a little bit of time. It's not doesn't
Sure.
have to be part of this budget discussion to be able to do that. What really impacts the budget is the amount of cash that we give folks. So we can give you a little more information about this as part of the budget process, and then come back to you and take a larger look at festivals, if that would be okay, outside of the budget process.
Of course. For me, I think there's probably 15 or 20 cost centers that we're going to look at as a group. We don't have the time to dive deep into every one of them and look at every scope of work and attendance and all of that. That's why I believe a uniform trim in a lot of these situations, not all of them, but I think a uniform trim is going to be just the fair and responsible approach there. I think talking as a body, what percentage should we cut our festivals budget, for example? That is achievable, digging in festival by festival. I just
Right.
don't,
At
I
this
don't think
point
it's-
in the time.
We just need a policy.
Sure,
I
that's
guess.
fine.
Okay, more questions on this slide?
Capital.
Can I just say on mid-year appropriations, just since that's
That's what I
something
wanted
that
to-
you've
Yes.
gotten used to, if you were to cut that, you could still consider anything. It would likely just be general fund transfer potentially.
During mid-year.
You could still do mid-year. It would be a different level of conversation that probably you've been used to the past couple of years.
that was my other question. Can you dumb down for me what happens when we need to work on a crosswalk?
So can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
So years ago, it was very political to do a mid-year appropriation. That would draw the media attention of they basically can't handle their budget. And to do this, they're going to do a mid-year appropriation. That's kind of how it looked, like you can't do budgets.
Yeah.
And so to be flexible and to handle things that come during the year, because in 12 months, things change, Sean proposed that we have this $1 million in every quarter, do a finance update, and you can appropriate some of that money. And if the year goes by and you don't, you put it back in the reserves.
Yeah.
And that was a great idea. And so we don't have to go through that political part that draws everybody's attention when, in fact, we're budgeting flexibility into our budget. So that was the whole intention.
But we always
behind
have a public hearing and we vote on it publicly, right?
You
Or
have voted,
oftentimes we
yes.
do.
You've had,
Yeah.
typically, my recollection is you've had a vote on it.
Yep.
And whether it was quarterly or more recently as we did surveys and other parking lot
Yeah,
expenditures.
yeah.
Yes.
Let me ask that another way. We always know when part of that mid-year funding bucket is used. That is not something that's done without council knowledge.
It's reported in the quarterly report.
And it's-
Whatever the next quarter is,
I feel like
there's
you
a
always
table in that
tell
report.
us what's left.
And it's
Yes,
a
we do.
motion that we pass at the
Yes.
quarterly.
We've started adding it this year, I don't remember when, January, February, probably, to staff reports if there is a
For
use
summer.
of that money. When you appropriated money mid-year for additional audit review, the Wamba Bond Dickinson work, if you remember that, then the merit pay, remember those staff reports, we're now including the table. When you do appropriate from that $1 million, we're showing you then, and then we're telling you again in the quarterly report.
I feel like we were consistently told how that money was, if and when it was used, but now we're getting it in a very organized.
But also amending the budget is required to be, if you amend the budget or you move money, transfer money from one place to another, that's also required to be reported to council either in the quarterly, even though it might not have been in the past, it's supposed to be recorded.
Depending
there-
on the funds.
There are specific points at which that has to happen. Not every movement requires that, but if you're going between funds or between functions, yes. The difference would be if this were not funded and something popped up mid-year that you needed to address, you would see a staff report that would appropriate the money mid-year and you would vote at that time from fund balance,
And if-
most likely.
And another thing I'll point out, if we made a decision in the past at the quarterly, I think it went on the consent agenda at the following meeting, so we'd have two shots at it. Is that correct? I'm trying to
I
remember.
don't remember.
We'd
I'd have to go back and look that
Yeah,
one
my
up.
memory is we did that back in about 22, but that kind of fell off.
Well,
But also, you didn't spend it several years.
It was
Yeah.
also higher, I think a larger amount when it started, the practice started.
Okay. You go ahead.
The contracted videos, I've been wondering, are those all in different pockets of the budget? Is it marketing?
You want to answer?
We have one enterprise contract with Digital P that's managed out of the manager's office, but it includes videos that are produced in any department. For example, we do some videos on our Minority in Business and Women's program. That comes out of the finance department. That's one of Denisha's projects. We might do video, the Parks and Recreation department might need a video for something. So we manage the contract, so we know your Cary matters, or how much it costs us to do the planning and zoning board meetings. So we have one contract, one list for all of them that we do with Digital P.
So that budget is from the manager's office?
The budget's, yes, the contract is managed out of the manager's office, yes.
So
That-
that line item is part of the manager's office budget.
Or marketing,
Well, marketing's in the manager's office.
right? What
Marketing.
bucket is what there's a bunch of divisions under the manager's office. Where's
There are a
that?
bunch, but there didn't used to be as many. Did I read that right?
There did not used to be as many.
Okay.
No, marketing used to be in IT,
That's true.
for example. Before that, it was in Parks and Recreation. So the Digital P contract is in the marketing budget.
Okay.
I also want to say that not every video or everything that we're doing with Digital P sounds like it's not important. Like the streaming of this meeting, is that correct, that it's being facilitated by Digital P?
Some aspects of it are being done by our special events team, and other aspects of it are done by Digital P.
And this falls.
Digital, for example, though, Digital P does your council meetings.
So when you say they do your council meeting, that means that they air.
That means that they sit in the control room, they press the buttons, they turn the lights on, they control your microphones, they record it, they put it back on the YouTube channel, they do all of the engineering and production for the council meetings.
So the contracted videos, I see there are two, like, one is for the internal communication, and one part will be the external with the residents. So it's more like communication function. And for the internal ones, it's, so that's kind of, because what I feel is some videos might be in need. Some videos might be like, we want. So if we want to spend every dollar wisely, I would prefer to spend all the videos on more communication with the residents so they could benefit. And that, and the funding is also from their tax dollars. So I'll support some videos, but we just need to justify what kind of videos we need.
Right.
And for tonight, I think you all, it sounds like you're on the same page with wanting to see more information about
Yeah.
that item.
Yeah.
So
I'd like
what
to
we-
see more about marketing in general. That's just an area that we don't talk about as much, and the number that I see here, I just need to be able to
What's the-
understand more.
what number?
Not tonight,
What
but
number are you referring to?
The marketing budget?
the marketing budget.
The total marketing budget?
Yes.
Okay.
I think for me, Russ, and maybe this is not a conversation for today, but maybe in 3x4, I want to understand more about manager's office budget
Sure.
a little bit more, because I don't know where I was looking at this, but the trend is going upwards, and I see that the budget has gone bigger and bigger. So some information would be helpful.
But I think it's smaller in this year's budget, correct?
This year.
Overall? Yes.
So, I have since we're talking broad topics, we're talking about marketing, we're talking about these specific ones, I also have concerns about how the budget document reads. For instance, since you brought up the marketing budget, there was a 78% increase from last year's, from last year's estimated dollars spent to the recommended budget for the next year, but no significant level increase is identified. So I'm having a hard time understanding, and that's on a lot of these pages, where every time I see that the budget increased, significantly, I don't understand, and it may absolutely be valuable and understood, but I don't see what the update is that you're associating with. What is the why associated?
Yeah.
So,
Some
for instance,
pages,
the PRCR went up 49%, the transportation went up, sports venues went up, a lot of them went up, multiple, and not just a little, quite a bit, 90% on one, 80%. But then there's no detail to tell me why. It might be absolutely fine. I just don't understand the why associated with it.
I totally agree. That was the one thing, as I've been sifting through this tremendous document that reflects a lot of hard work, but I was doing a lot of math. I had to sit with each page with my calculator because I would love to see that delta listed for us.
Yep.
Between 26 approved and 27 recommended, so that we could see the plus or minus there.
Right.
And then, yeah, for me, even just like a rough bullet to explain the delta would be so helpful. It could be, this is the 5% merit and this is just salary, and so that's the variance there. Or, something to help explain.
If you're adding
Right.
new service.
Yes.
An extra column that actually has the percent change would save us from doing the math or looking at the number, because Raleigh does that on their budget. And then it's really helpful to see, okay, look, I understand. And then also the alignment with what they want to accomplish. The initiatives don't actually call out why this number is so much bigger. It might be absolutely well documented, but I can't figure out what it is.
No, this is great feedback.
In some of these categories, a lot of them, it says significant service level changes.
Yeah.
And if it says none, it almost always looks similar to last year. But in the times where there's a lot listed there, you often see the number change.
Right.
But for marketing, for example, there's nothing listed that says service level changes. So, which is maybe highlight it and flag it to say, okay, are there significant levels? Was it just
Right.
accidentally left off of the page?
It's great feedback, especially since we said it's probably going to be a little bit of a multi-year effort.
Yeah.
As we shared with you some of the slides from budgets from like 13 years ago. To get to a place where we can provide more information. So I think all the feedback's great.
But overall, I'm so happy. I was showing my husband the binders from the last 2 years versus this,
You've got a lot of tabs in there.
Yes.
but it's really valuable information. Like, it's been
It's
super
super
helpful.
I had to pivot to the digital copy. This was completely unmanageable for me. That's fine. Control F all day long. Me and Harold, we
I use both.
OG keyboard shortcuts here. And I'm also really pleased to see I'm not the only one that had to get out my calculator. 'Cause I was like, I really did. I really did.
I know this is beyond the scope of the conversation, but I'm going to be very curious to hear about sports venue administration, because that was
97%.
Yeah, that was a huge variance. Yeah.
One other idea I wanted to introduce when we're not talking about capital in particular is what I'd like to understand in some of these, for example, website overhaul, where it makes sense to consider bringing those in-house. I know there are financial variance, like it's not just, we could pay somebody $100,000 a year to do the website and save $500,000. I know it's not that simple. I know there's benefits and there's pension and there's $1 million and the expense of hiring somebody. I know there's a lot more to it, but in situations, particularly with services and with this kind of stuff, I'd really like to understand when we do outsource to Digital P, for example, is that simply, is that cost savings, or is that it would be 3 people we'd have to hire to equal the skill set, the engineering expertise, that kind of thing? What I'd like to understand, and I believe we had a webmaster years ago, and it probably didn't go.
You have a webmaster now.
We do.
That is to get new software, like a whole new CMS.
Oh, the whole enchilada.
A whole enchilada, which
Exactly.
Lori remembers we did in like 2015, 2016.
It's a long time.
So that's enchilada.
That's the whole, and I was on
10 years.
the ISAB at that time, and we were giving a lot of, we'll call it very constructive feedback, because we all had different ideas and opinions. It was an idea fest, but it was also an opinion fest, as I recall.
No, it's good. It's good.
That being said, oftentimes I have these conversations all the time with people. They're like, why don't you just hire somebody to do that? I'll do that for $30,000, that kind of thing. So I think just exploring in bullets, like here's approximately, give me a wide range. I don't care what it would cost to bring this in-house when we do these contracts, would help us understand, and folks that are paying attention understand why we contract externally, particularly for services where at a glance it seems like it would be more inexpensive to bring it in-house.
With the video, just a little history on that one, and we'll have all the detail for you for your next discussion. when we started the channel, which you know from the quarterly meeting, we started in 1998, we did $100,000 in a capital investment because we had to build a studio in the council chambers, old council chambers. But it was more cost-effective to contract out the operations of it and the maintenance of it because all we did was a council meeting, right? So we were totally contract for that. But then as time went on, the council wanted to add P&Z and then zoning board of adjustment, and then there was Cary Matters. Then it became more cost-effective to bring all of that in-house. So we stopped contracting, kept it in-house, and then we started adding more videos, and, the program got moved around, and so now.
So which year is that?
So now we're totally contracted without anyone in-house. So
Long time.
it does that, and we'll be able to bring all of that for you.
It's kind of
Yeah,
like
I
festivals.
Yeah.
I think one thing I want to kind of throw this in the conversation, not necessarily from a point of view that we have to make a decision tonight, but I know some of you kind of are also thinking on the same lines, but at some point we have to start thinking about, now Cary is growing, what is the standard that we want to maintain? And what is the threshold? And how much are we spending on every project? And how do we make sure that, we are using every penny very thoughtfully?
Especially if it's a capital project and you need millions of dollars, for a one-time expenditure.
Yeah?
Which is a little different than the operating, which is ongoing.
And I don't know what state legislative contract means.
Lobbyist.
Lobbyists.
lobbyist.
That's right, yes.
Of course,
What-
that's what.
One last kind of overarching comment is, I would love us to consider evolving from this terminology of marketing, which is generally one way, to more communication, which is more two-way, back and forth with our citizens, community engagement, communications. The marketing that we've done, I get it, it's gotten us economic development and all kinds of things, but I really think of talking with our citizens isn't marketing. It's communications, it's 311, it's collaboration. I don't think I would like our citizens to be thinking we're marketing to them. We're not, we're communicating with them. So I'd really like us to maybe shift in the philosophy of how we talk about that, because I really think that could help us also slowly rebuild trust with the citizenry as well.
I think you're spot on, and Susan could add more, I'm sure. There's probably lots of feelings as well, because the shift occurred, marketing was not communications. Communications was whittled away.
Sean destroyed the communications department, and he replaced it with marketing and 311.
So, and
And
that-
those were the words we were told to use.
And to have a communications department to be able to do that, and there is a communications director position, which would be helpful, and I love your idea to have more of that conversation.
That's an open rec now, or it's in this recommended?
It's in the
It's in the
recommended
recommended
budget as a
budget.
position.
Thank you.
And I watch online the video that the highest view is Laura is riding a bicycle in the greenway. That's really people want to see, yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I checked that. It's the-
All right.
Do you want to see capital?
Yeah, we can show you a
let's do
similar
that.
slide related to capital if we're ready to go there.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a little smaller. I apologize for that, but we're trying to kind of get it on one screen. So what you're looking at are, these are general capital projects that are 100% funded in the recommended budget with general fund transfer. So you may be asking, how does this affect my operating budget? How does this affect my tax rate? This is $10.5 million at the top, $10,576,000 of projects that are using money that's coming from the general fund. A little bit of fund balance, some of that is general fund revenue, right, that's supporting these. So if we were to reduce or remove any of these, we are taking some pressure off of the tax rate. That's the tie between these things. Now what you're going to see on here, or what you do see on here are, and again, these are things that are just funded. A couple of things we did not include because they're replacement equipment that must be replaced. So you won't see those here if you go back and look at your budget, but these are things where there is choice that could happen. What I want to make sure we all understand and see, and it does say not recommended. Again, staff, these things are all funded in the recommended budget. But if you want to consider things that it could impact the general fund, reducing or removing some of these things could make that movement. What I want to make sure we're all clear on and we see is there's a whole section that has housing right here. Those things equal $1.825 million. That is part of the decision that you all made a couple of weeks ago, since dates are not my thing today, about a penny toward housing. And so I just want to be very abundantly clear that, like, this isn't saying cut it. In fact, it's saying, like, not recommended. But it's available to be considered. As we work from top to bottom, you'll notice the majority of these, not a lot, the majority of these are maintenance. This is like maintaining park facilities, general maintenance on this building and other building, like the town hall building, general maintenance on fire buildings, right? General maintenance at Coca Booth. The development item that you see, I want to make sure we highlight that one because that is a development fee payment that would be related to, I won't get the Alston right, but it's an Alston project that you all are going to see on Thursday. I think it's Yards.
Yes.
To get the Alstons right. Right, so could you choose not to fund that? You could, we could. But this is where the general fund money is going to support the majority of that capital transfer.
You said something interesting when you were talking about it. You said money's coming from the general fund and some fund balance.
Yeah, if you look, I won't get the page number
That
right,
got
but if
my
you pull your
attention.
general fund summary document open, I don't remember the
Right.
page number. If I walk out of my
I was
box, I
trying
can
to
look at
figure out
somebody's
where
box and
that
tell you
was.
where. May I borrow your book,
I was
Michelle,
gonna
because we
say,
were looking earlier?
I should know the page number by now, because I
Sorry.
keep asking you.
If I can come out of my little box.
5, 6, 7.
And as they look for the page number, just a reminder about time, it's 6:21.
Page 58 looks like upside down.
Yes.
Okay, once you're on page 58, you can see
Do you want to turn it around?
no, we're good. You can see there's a total where it says capital transfers out and in. There's $16.2 million worth of transfers to capital
From the fund balance.
it's from the general fund. So looking right, let me help you get there. Hold on. Working upside down is not my strong suit. Right here, 16.2, okay? And when we look at the general fund overall, 58.
Yep, 16,
Oh, sorry.
that is coming from,
Oh, it's in your recommended budget, which is not in your book. But I can show you on Lori's. or Bella's.
so I see the beginning
Yes.
fund balance is at 142, the ending
16.
fund balance is at 136.
Yes, and what we're honing in on
Is the 16, that is pulled
That's the
over.
general fund, that's the total amount. You remember I told you just a second ago
Yeah.
that that 10.5 is most of that. There were some things like some equipment in the fire department, I think they're radios. They must be replaced. They're not on this list. We really don't have a lot of choice there. So there were a few things that are not on this 10.5, but this 10.5 is a subset of the 16.2 that's showing on your general fund summary,
So your general,
go ahead.
sorry.
which is page 58.
Your general fund balance reserve is supposed to be set at 33.3%.
Of total expenditures and debt
After,
service.
if this budget, recommended budget were approved, where is it sitting?
It's at the bottom of that page.
136.
Yes.
Which
136,
is what
got it.
percent?
which is,
It's above the 33, because
Yeah.
the
It's-
33% is 103 million.
We had a prior slide on that as well.
And-
Yeah.
So-
And I,
so it's
Reverend
30, it's 33 million more than we need
Above policy.
above policy.
Why?
So why aren't we using that instead of?
This is a great, Michelle, do you?
That's exactly where I was going.
Michelle, that's what we were meeting about.
I'm going to pour it.
It looked like I was late earlier.
Show me one answer.
That's
No,
exactly where
Michelle
I
does
was
not
going.
want to answer. Michelle needs to hear it 3 more times before I.
Well, I'm going to be consistent because Dana gave a wonderful answer to Michelle, and I want to make sure you all hear what Michelle heard.
yep, so the first thing is, it is very important to note that is just a projection. So it is not accurate to say that that is what the fund balance is. Very, very important. Now, we do projections as a best effort to estimate where things are at the end of the year. And so we gave you our best estimate based on the information that we had available at the time. But it truly is not actual fund balance. You will not know that until the year is done. In fact, typically, you get it in November or December. We get a pretty good hint in September, October, because our last receipts of revenues come in September. So that's a very important thing. And then the second part of that is that you all need to have a session to talk about fund balance. And the reason why is because the current fund balance policy is what you all have decided to measure yourself against. We know that S&P is measuring us differently. We also know that the Local Government Commission this year made comments based on a third measure, a third type of fund balance. And so we believe that this is a whole session that you should spend to get into the detail of it so that you can make your decision. And at that point, if you wanted to do mid-year allocations to things based on whatever decision you make with the fund balance, that would be very appropriate.
But my question is, even if I look at the last quarterly, which estimates that we're going to end the fiscal year at 125 million with fund balance, with our projection originally at 96 million for 33.33%, we could use 10.8 million to reduce, or I'm assuming we could use 10.8 million of that to reduce the tax rate 2 cents. Is that correct?
I think it depends on your risk tolerance. Yes. So essentially, what you are saying is, we trust that the estimates you've given us are going to bear out. And then secondarily, we trust that we know enough about the different ways of measuring fund balance that we're willing to take that risk. So that it really is a risk tolerance decision on your part.
And Dana, when you say we know enough, you mean risking AAA bond rating, risking local government commission.
Or
that's what you mean by risk.
Correct.
Falling
below.
Yeah, so your own policy is actually the least punitive
Right.
of the things that can come back on you.
But we
But
could
with-
choose to lower the fund balance policy.
We
That's what
could, which would take a bit of time, but certainly we would still, even if we used 10.8 million, we'd still be 15 million more than 96 million if the projections are right. We'd still have a buffer of 3 cents still in our savings account.
I think it's important for all of you to know that the finance staff and the management team had been trying to get in front of you with fund balance discussions for way more than a year. So you want to talk about it, we want to talk about it. We think that there are ways that it can be adjusted. I don't think you're prepared to have that conversation tonight, but we are with you 100% for wanting to do that.
And the reason I ask is I very much appreciate the transmittal letter and your comments about smoothing and what rate smoothing means and how we've used it so successfully with the utility fund and how everybody wants a predictability with their increase. And inflation has been so hard on so many that a 10% increase in taxes this year after obviously a 4.79, which was last year, but even a much larger one the year before, 10% to me isn't aligned with the term smoothing. 5% to me seems more like smoothing, but 10% is the increase I'm seeing when I buy milk and eggs and sort of things. So I think, I will only speak for me, I would rather have close, 15 million in the bank rather than 25 million in the bank and help the residents who are suffering and have closer to a 5% tax rate increase rather than a 10%. That's just
Well, let's
putting it
also
out
make
there.
sure it's grounded in, that money is very good for a one-time use.
Understood.
Which probably gets to Stacy's intro to some degree about ongoing operating expenses.
Yeah.
You could use that for one-time use, but you've got to refill your savings account.
Right.
Understood.
I think a secondary point, if I can tack on to that, Russ, is the fact that we're going to have to do another budget next year, right? We're going to start probably in July. And there, so everybody's excited, I know. And there are more capital projects there, right? There are things we're funding this year that need more. There's more maintenance next year. And so having access to that fund balance, having that funding there and letting it roll from one year next doesn't hurt either when you're thinking about your near-term 5-year planning window. There is absolutely, to your point, Lori, there is a balance between, it is an art and a science to get to the right amount of fund balance, right? It's both.
I get it.
But there are many good attributes for why it's okay for a year to have a little bit more. Completely understand the perspective that you're bringing forward.
Some communities use it, if you think of it as how much you want to fund a community center. Do you want to save some money to do it over time? Do you want to do a bond referendum, debt finance it somehow? There's many different ways that this council hasn't had that conversation yet.
That's exactly where my brain just was, wanting to protect some of this fund that we're considering using. So doing a combination of exactly what Lori just described, Councilmember Bush, exactly what she just described, but really looking to trim a half a cent or a cent through reconsidering some budget items. I believe, I appreciate the thought and time that went into these lists, but I think there's other places where if we discuss as a body where we want to save, I think, I've trying to take a look at what we're spending on software, for example, had a really great conversation with a citizen, a resident on that. I think there's other places where we can, instead of looking at the housing monies that I think there's a lot of support for those monies on this council, that I don't believe is the place to look to shave that half cent or cent off of the recommended budget. I think there's other places that we probably collectively have a different perspective on than previous councils. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And Russ, I know our agendas are really tight between now and budget adoption, including tonight, because here we are at 6:31. I wonder if we could find some time, even if it has to be in our 3x4s, to have this conversation about fund balance, not meaning changing policy, understanding that's something we need to have a longer conversation about for fiscal year 28, but just what Lori has proposed about how we use the projected dollars this year, and taking a deeper dive on that as we run out of time to do it tonight.
Right. And there's obviously with that, not making you do it tonight, but a math exercise to get to a tax rate or a decrease or anything else that, where we want to get to the adopted budget.
Yeah, and
I agree.
My point isn't that there are lots of ways to trim and cut and, tighten our waist. What I really want to make sure is that when we say we want to rate smooth, when we say we want to help our residents, that we think about how it affects us. And I know that when I see a 10% increase in something, that doesn't seem like a small increase. 5% is hard enough. I mean, somebody told me yesterday he filled his car and it was, over $100.
That's right.
And everybody's feeling it. And other municipalities are also trimming as well. And I don't think now's the time to do a 10% tax rate increase.
I kind of agree with Lori. Mayor Pro Tem Bush.
Lori.
I also think, I'm just going to say it, every time that we are staring at the clock in a work session like this, when there is no meeting after this, I want to be mindful of the staff's time, but we have a lot of kind of complex work to do, and when we're not time constrained with a council meeting afterwards, if we could consider some way to make some of these work sessions less time constrained, I think that would be helpful, because we keep not getting to everything, and at some point we've just got to sit here and hammer it out. I feel like we start a lot of discussions to how many times, Susan, have we brought up the fund balance and we never get there? Even if we put it on a work session agenda, we're going to run out of time and not discuss it if we don't start sort of sticking it out until the work is done. So I just want to share that perspective. I get all riled up, and by the time I'm like, yeah, let's make some decisions, we're like, oh, we got to go. And I completely understand why. And I am not trying to keep staff here till midnight very often.
We have a reason tonight, and it's costing us money every minute we wait, so true.
Yeah.
And the feedback you've given is incredibly helpful.
Yeah, it's great.
Truly, this conversation has been very helpful.
It's great.
Feels like monkey wrenches, but thank you.
Nope, that's how you build a budget. It
Yeah,
is
is it?
a lot of art and science combined.
So we can pick this up on Thursday.
Can I,
I
let me
will-
do, if you don't mind, I'm
Yep,
going
let me
to
scoot out of your way.
end and get past Stacy. I have one slide, and it was an update, because it was something that the circle was in the wrong place at the quarterly meeting. And so it's just the question of, and this was kind of the slide you see, with a general statute attached, the auditor shall be selected and shall report directly to the governing body. So I just wanted to make that update kind of correction for you all that you had seen in a previous meeting.
So Sherry Beckert should have called you back.
I know. I'm like, what?
And then
Your face.
you will be seeing more information on the auditor selection in the coming weeks. And so with that,
I would entertain a motion for the council to go into closed session.
Pursuant to GS 143, 318, 11A1, 3, and 6, I move that we hold a closed session to consult with attorneys employed by or retained by the town in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege by the town and the attorneys, prevent the disclosure of information that is made privileged or confidential pursuant to the laws of the state, including GS 143, 318, 10E, or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes. Consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of employment, conditions of initial employment, one or more individual public officers or employees, and to hear or investigate a complaint, charge, or grievance by or against an individual public officer or employee.
Second.
Motion and a second discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and the council will stay in this room and go into closed session.